The skies over planet Gravelon were red with smoke and fire. Mountains of black ash rose into the air. Somewhere deep in the jungle below, something ancient moved through the darkness. Something deadly. Something feared. They called it a shadow beast. It had hunted soldiers. It had ripped through machines. It never left survivors. Many had tried to kill it. All had failed. But now, for the first time in years, a group of humans had found a way to capture it alive. Everyone called it Mercy. Captain James stood on the deck of the human dropship, watching the red planet below. His face was calm, but inside he was nervous. The mission was risky. One mistake and they could all die. "This is not just a beast," he told his team. "It's smarter than it looks. Don't forget that." Beside him stood Lieutenant Mark, younger than most on the team but with eyes that had seen more than he let on. He said nothing. His gaze was fixed on the video feed, night vision, showing a dark shape moving silently between trees. The predator was massive, over 3 meters, tall with long arms, claws sharp as steel and glowing red eyes. But it didn't run or roar. It moved slowly, almost like it was tired. "Deploy the net," James ordered. The trap was set. A large steel net shot from the trees and wrapped around the predator's body. It roared once, deep and loud, but didn't fight for long. Special. Darts fired from the shadows. The beast swayed, then fell. It was caught. The team moved in with care, guns ready. Everyone expected blood, an attack, maybe a trap. But the predator just lay still, breathing heavy. Its eyes, even half closed, looked straight at Mark. And Mark didn't look away. Back aboard the main ship, the predator was placed inside a thick glass cage. It had been reinforced with energy fields and anti-gravity locks. No way to escape. Or so they thought. Around it, scientists, soldiers, and engineers stared. Many had seen it only in news reports. Seeing the beast in real life made them go quiet. Even the bravest looked uneasy. Mark stayed in the control room watching from the screen. "It's strange," said one of the guards. "Why didn't it fight harder?" Captain James nodded. "Maybe it wanted to be caught." That idea made everyone shiver. Days passed. The predator didn't eat, didn't growl, didn't move much. It just watched. Especially when Mark walked. By the cage. It always looked at him, and only him. "Do you know it?" James asked one night, as the two officers stood in silence. Mark didn't answer right away. "No," he said finally, "but I think it knows me." That night, Mark sat, alone in the observation room. Through the glass, the predator stared at him. Its glowing red eyes were no longer full of rage. They were softer now, tired, like it had seen too much pain. For a moment, Mark forgot it was a killer. For a moment, he saw something else, a creature, far from home, broken, lost. And suddenly, he remembered something. Long ago, on a mission gone wrong, Mark had been stranded on a wild jungle world. He had almost died, but something had watched over him. Something had scared away other beasts. Something with red eyes. His heart skipped. Was it the same creature? No one ever believed his story back then. They said he imagined it, that he was lucky to survive. But now he was sure. This was the same predator. And it remembered. Outside the observation room, the crew still called it a monster. Some said they should kill it before it escaped. Others wanted to study it like a science project. No one trusted it. But Mark felt something different. "It didn't kill us," he said quietly to himself. "It had the chance, but it didn't." Why? That question stayed in his mind. As the ship moved closer to Earth, a decision had to be made. What would they do with the predator? Some called it mercy to let it live. But mercy can be misunderstood. And what no one saw coming was that this beast would not remain in a cage for long. One day soon it would walk beside a human like a loyal animal, and then the galaxy would ask, who is the real predator now? The ship floated quietly in deep space, stars shining cold outside the windows. Inside, tension filled the air. The predator hadn't moved for hours. It sat in the center of the cage, still and silent, like a statue carved from darkness. Soldiers kept watch in shifts, their hands always near their weapons. Even the bravest men kept their distance, except Lieutenant Mark. He returned again and again to the observation room, watching the creature in silence. He didn't speak. He didn't blink much. But deep inside, something was turning, an old memory rising. Then, without warning, the silence broke. Alert! Alert! Unidentified ships detected! The alarm rang through the ship. Lights turned red, voices shouted through radios. "Scar warships!" yelled a pilot. "They've locked onto us." The crew scrambled to battle stations. Captain James barked. "Orders! Shields up! Ready weapons! Get us out of here!" But it was too late. The first blast shook the ship. Sparks flew. The lights flickered. The enemy had already boarded. Soldiers rushed down the hallways. Scar invaders, tall, sharp, armor-covered aliens, poured in through breech doors. They killed without mercy. Screams echoed across the ship, and then the predator's eyes opened. In a single fluid motion, it rose to its feet. It looked around. The emergency lights turned its black fur deep red. Then it did something no one expected. It roared, but it wasn't a sound of rage. It was warning. The cage shuddered. The power grid was failing. The beast took a step forward, and the electric field around it blinked. The soldiers guarding the room shouted, "The cage is unstable. Shut it down. We can't let it out. Too late." With a heavy strike, the predator smashed the glass wall and stepped into the hallway. It didn't charge the humans. It didn't even look at them. It ran toward the battle. Mark grabbed a weapon and followed. In the lower decks, the Scar were tearing through security forces. Blood stained the walls. A young engineer screamed for help. Then came the sound of claws on steel. The predator moved like a ghost. One leap, and it landed behind the Scar warriors. Its claws flashed, ripping through metal and flesh. It didn't stop. It didn't hesitate. It was faster than any human, more brutal than any robot, and somehow, it was on their side. Mark reached the hall just in time to see the creature shield the engineer with its body. A Scar fired a plasma gun. The blast hit the predator in the back, but it didn't fall. Instead, it turned and roared louder this time. The sound made the Scar freeze for a moment. A second later, the predator crushed them. Captain James watched the battle from the command deck. "Is this really happening?" He saw Mark standing beside the beast. Not running, not afraid, just standing there, like the predator was an old friend. When the battle was finally over, dozens of Scar were dead. The humans had survived, but only barely, and the predator, it walked back to the broken cage on its own, and sat down, not like a prisoner, like a soldier who had done its job. The crew stared in shock. No one dared move, except Mark. He stepped forward and looked the beast in the eye. "Why did you save us?" he whispered. "Why? Me?" The predator didn't answer, of course, but it tilted its head and looked at him like it understood. Something was happening, something no one could explain yet. That night, while the ship floated in silence once more, the crew argued. "Kill it before it turns on us," said one officer. "No," said Mark. It made a choice. It didn't kill. It protected. "But why?" someone asked. "It's still a monster." Mark looked out the window at the stars moving past. "No," he said. "Maybe it used to be a monster, but not anymore." Little did they know, this was just the beginning. The predator had chosen its side, and its side was human. The ship drifted quietly through space now. Fires had been put out. The dead were being counted. The wounded were being treated. But one question remained on everyone's lips. Why did the predator protect the humans? No one had an answer. Except one man, Lieutenant Mark. He sat alone in his room, staring at an old dusty photo. It was faded and bent at the corners. The image showed a much younger Mark, standing in front of a jungle ruin, his uniform torn, his face dirty. Behind him was a shadow, a shape, blurry but there, a beast. He hadn't looked at this photo in years. Back then, no one believed him. They said he'd imagined the creature, that he was half dead from starvation and fever, that he dreamed the whole thing. But now he knew. It was real. It had always been real. 5 years ago, Mark was part of a failed rescue mission on a wild jungle planet. His team had been ambushed, ships destroyed, communications lost. Mark was left behind, alone, bleeding, hunted by creatures with too many teeth and not enough fear. But one night, under the light of 2 broken moons, something saved him. A huge figure emerged from the shadows, its red eyes glowing. A predator. It had chased off the jungle beasts. It didn't kill him. It sat across from him in silence for hours. It left him food, raw, strange meat he could barely eat. Every day, it watched over him. And every night, it guarded his camp. For 3 weeks, they survived together. No words, no names. But something unspoken passed between them, a strange, silent understanding. Then a rescue ship arrived. The predator disappeared into the jungle without a sound. Mark had told the rescue, "Team everything." They had laughed. "Jungle madness," they said. No one believes that fairy tale, so he stopped talking about it until now. Back in the observation room, the predator sat in its repaired cage. Quiet, calm, like it was waiting. Mark entered the room alone. The moment he stepped forward, the predator's eyes locked on him. But not with anger, with recognition. He moved slowly, step by step, until his hand touched the edge of the glass. "I remember you," Mark whispered. "Do you remember me too?" The predator stood. It moved closer, claws clicking gently on the steel floor. Its giant head leaned toward the glass, then, softly, gently, it touched the glass with its claw, the exact same place where Mark's fingers rested. No one else saw that moment. But Mark knew. It remembered. Later that night, Captain James asked Mark to explain. "Why you? Why did it follow you? Save you? Obey you?" Mark sat quiet for a long time. Then he took out the old photo and placed it on the table. "This," he said, "wasn't our first meeting." The captain stared at the faded image, eyes narrowing. "You're saying it saved you before?" "Yes. And now it's protecting you again?" Mark nodded. "Not just me. It could have escaped. It didn't. It chose to stay, to fight for us." The room went silent. One officer spoke. "You think it trusts you?" Mark looked toward the glass wall of the observation room. The predator was still watching him. "No," he said quietly. "I think it believes in me." But not everyone agreed. Some officers wanted to put the predator down. "It's a risk," they said. "One wrong move, and it kills us all." Others saw opportunity. "If it can be trained," they whispered, "it could become the ultimate weapon." But Mark saw something else. Not a beast, not a weapon, a friend, and maybe the last hope in a galaxy falling apart. In the final moments of the night, Mark returned to the cage. He placed a hand on the glass again. The predator was waiting. Neither moved, no sound, just 2 survivors, staring at each other, both carrying scars, both hunted, both misunderstood. And in that still moment, something new was born. Not fear, not power, but loyalty, the kind that no science could explain, and no one could ever break. The ship shook again. A loud bang came from the lower decks. Boom. Lights flickered, walls creaked. The crew grabbed onto rails as the floor tilted slightly. "Lieutenant." Mark ran down the hallway, his heart racing. Something was wrong. "Main engine failure," a voice shouted through the comms. We've hit a debris field, asteroids moving at high speed. The screen on the control panel showed sharp black rocks flying toward the ship. Big ones, fast ones. Another alarm rang out. Critical damage detected. The ship was losing power fast. Life support would fail in 10 minutes. Artificial gravity was already gone on Deck 6. The ship was dying, and the humans were trapped inside it. Mark didn't go to the bridge. He went to the cage. Inside, the Predator was standing. It had already sensed the danger. Its glowing red eyes scanned the room. Mark entered the chamber, breath short. "We need help," he whispered. The Predator stepped forward. This time, no cage stopped it. The emergency systems were already shut down. The locks were disabled to save power. The glass wall slid open with a slow hiss. Other crew members screamed through the comms. "He's letting it out, lock down the sector." But Mark was already walking, and the Predator walked beside him. Not like a prisoner, not like a weapon, but like a partner. Down in the engine room, smoke filled the air. Fires sparked from broken panels. Engineers lay unconscious or pinned under fallen metal. A huge fuel pipe had burst, blocking the main controls. Mark coughed and pulled his shirt over his mouth. "We have to cool the core. If it melts down, the ship will explode." But no human could reach it, not without getting crushed by debris or burned alive. The Predator looked at the mess, then it leapt into action. Without fear, it grabbed burning pipes with its bare claws and pulled them aside. It lifted beams like paper. Its thick skin steamed, but it didn't stop. Mark yelled instructions. The Predator followed. For 10 long minutes, man and beast worked together. No words, just trust. Finally, with one last push, the Predator reached the cooling lever. It slammed it down. System stable. Emergency cooling online. The ship rumbled and then went quiet. The lights came back on. The crew was stunned. The engineers had watched everything through the security feed. They saw the beast moving with purpose. They saw it following Mark's lead. They saw it saving their lives. Captain James watched the replay 3 times. "Unbelievable," he whispered. It didn't just help, it chose to. Later, Mark walked into the med bay. His arm was burned. His uniform was ripped. But he didn't care. Behind him walked the Predator. Slow. Silent. Its skin was blackened and smoking, but it didn't cry. It didn't groan. It just stood close to Mark like a loyal guard. Some crew members stepped back in fear, but one young technician, maybe 17 years old, stepped forward and placed a water bottle near the creature's foot, then backed away quickly. The Predator looked down, then it looked at Mark. Mark smiled. "It's a gift." The Predator picked it up and drank. The room went quiet. Then, one person clapped, then another. Soon, the whole med bay was clapping, not out of fear, but out of respect. That night in the command room, a debate began. "Maybe it's more than just a pet now," said one officer. "It saved the ship," another added. Captain James sat in silence, thinking. Finally, he spoke. "No more cages," he said. Everyone stared. "It walks with us now. We owe it that much." In his quarters, Mark sat near his bed. The Predator lay nearby, curled like a sleeping beast, but peaceful. Mark took out the photo, again. He looked at the younger version of himself. Back then, he had been the one needing protection. Now, they protected each other. But somewhere, deep in the stars, a signal was sent. A message. Someone, or something, was watching, and it didn't like that a predator had chosen a human over its own kind. War was coming, and this time it wasn't just humans at risk. It was everything the predator once came from. The ship had survived, the engines were working again, the crew was alive, the fires were out, and the predator, once feared, was now walking freely through the hallways beside Lieutenant Mark. But peace never lasts long in deep space. A signal was sent to Earth Command. It included battle footage, reports from the engine room, and one shocking sentence typed by Captain James himself. Predator no longer hostile. It follows human orders. It saved the ship. The reply came within hours. Top. Priority message order. Terminate the alien predator immediately. Reason. Unknown threat. Too dangerous to keep alive. Mark slammed his fist on the table. They didn't even read the report, he said. They don't care what it did. They just want it dead. Captain James looked tired. He had led ships into wars, but never had he seen anything like this. They're scared. A predator that chooses peace is more dangerous than one that chooses war, because it makes people question everything. Mark stood and paced. We can't let them kill it. It's not a beast anymore. It never was, James replied quietly. But we don't get to decide that anymore. Hours later, a military strike ship arrived. Aboard it were 5 elite officers from Earth Special Command. Their suits were black, their faces were cold. They didn't shake hands. They didn't smile. Their leader, Commander Sora, spoke sharply. The alien dies before this ship reaches Earth. No debate. Mark stepped forward. It saved us. It saved me. It's not a threat. Sora looked at him like he was a child. You've grown attached to it. That's emotional weakness, not logic. Mark didn't back down. And your fear? That's not logic either. The room went silent. Sora turned and gave the order. Prepare the poison. That night, Mark did something he never imagined. He broke the law. He entered the storage deck where the predator now rested. It had made a quiet nest of blankets and ship scrap. It looked up when he entered, calm, trusting. Mark knelt beside it. They want to kill you, he said softly. Because they don't understand you. The predator blinked slowly. It tilted, its head listening. I won't let them, Mark said. But if you stay here, they'll find a way. Mark opened a secret hatch behind the cargo bins. A small escape pod waited inside. The predator stood up. Then, to Mark's surprise, it growled low. Deep. Sad. It didn't want to leave him. Mark swallowed hard. If you stay, they'll put you in a lab. Or worse. The predator looked at him, again. Then, it did something strange. It placed one claw gently on Mark's chest, like it was saying, Then I stay with you. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the ship. Boom! Not from the outside, but from inside. The predator leapt forward, standing protectively in front of Mark. Red lights flashed, screams echoed, Mark's comm buzzed. The special ops team, they planted a bomb near the reactor. They said they'd rather destroy the ship than bring the predator back alive. Mark's blood ran cold. This isn't about safety, he whispered. It's a cover-up. They want to erase the truth. With the predator beside him, Mark ran through smoke and fire. The two moved as one, man and beast, dodging flames, climbing beams, saving trapped crew along the way. When they reached the bomb, Mark didn't know how to disarm it, but the predator did. It stepped forward slowly, carefully. Its claws reached into the device. With a twist, a snap, and a short burst of sparks, the bomb shut down. The lights returned to normal. The ship was saved. Again. This time there was no debate. Captain James stood before his crew and the remaining soldiers. You want to destroy it? He asked. Then destroy me too. Because I stand with it. The room was quiet. Then Mark stepped forward. So do I. One by one, the crew stood beside them. Even a few of the special ops soldiers hesitated. Commander Sora, defeated, said nothing. She had lost. That night, Mark returned to the observation deck. The predator stood next to him, staring out at the stars. You could have run, Mark said softly. But you stayed. Again. The predator let out a low sound. Not a growl, not a roar. Something, almost like a purr. For the first time in history, a predator had chosen peace, and humans had chosen to protect it. The predator was now free, not just from its cage, but from fear. It walked the ship's halls with quiet steps. Not one human stopped it. Some nodded. Some even smiled. It didn't smile back. It didn't know how. But it understood. It was no longer just a thing. It was seen. Lieutenant Mark sat alone in the ship's archive room. A million files glowed softly on the walls. Maps, logs, alien languages, and forgotten tech. He wasn't looking for orders. He was looking for truth. After everything, after the rescue, after the bomb, after the Predator's choice, one question still burned in his mind. What is it really? Not just what it looked like, but why it existed. He pulled up ancient files from deep space probes. He found old logs from a war 300 years ago, a battle between the Scar and an ancient alien race called the Nurek, a race long extinct. Except, one log caught his eye. It was short, broken, damaged by time, but 3 lines still remained. Nurek Weapon Guard Prototype, Model K09. Genetically coded to protect sentience from extinction-level threats. Last signal detected. Gravelon Jungle Sector. Mark's heart raced. Gravelon, the planet where they found the Predator. He quickly ran a DNA match between Nurek files and the Predator. Match 96.3%. Mark ran to Captain James. It's not a wild predator, he said breathlessly. It's not even born the way we think. James frowned. What are you saying? It was made, engineered, designed to guard sentient life, especially humans. The captain looked stunned. You mean it was protecting us because that's its purpose? Mark nodded. Yes, it wasn't attacking colonies, it was hunting Scar infiltrators who got there first. James leaned back slowly. We've been calling it a monster, but it's a bodyguard. Mark looked out the window where the Predator stood watching the stars. No, he said quietly. It's more than that. It's the last soldier of a race that died protecting life. It kept doing its job, even when no one remembered. In the lower deck, the Predator sat in silence. But something inside it was changing. Memory. Old memory. Not just from the jungle, but older. Flashes of tall silver buildings, soft voices, hands reaching out, a child, crying, a war, fire, screams, Scar ships falling from the sky. The Nurek had loved peace, but when peace failed, they made one final weapon, not to kill, but to guard. They named it K09, not a pet, not a beast, but a legacy. Mark returned to the Predator with a datapad. He sat on the floor beside it and slowly played the damaged message from the ancient log. The Predator watched the screen carefully. Its eyes widened. A soft growl escaped its throat, but not angry. More like pain. It remembered. And Mark saw. Is that who you are? He asked. The Predator didn't answer, but it gently pressed one claw to the datapad. Yes. Later that day, the Earth Council sent a new message. Return to base. The creature will be studied under human control. Mark didn't even finish reading it. He stood up and said to the captain, We're not handing it over. James looked at him carefully. If we disobey again, we lose our ranks, our careers. Mark shook his head. I'm not protecting a creature anymore, I'm protecting a legacy. Captain James stared out at the stars. Then we make our own path. That night, Mark stood beside the Predator in the cargo bay. A strange silence filled the room. No orders, no weapons, just a man and the last protector of a forgotten race. I know who you are now, Mark said softly, and I'll help you finish what they started. The Predator tilted its head, then stepped forward and touched Mark's chest gently with its claw. Not as a threat, but as a vow. Together, but deep in the Scar system. Another signal pulsed. Something older, something stronger. The creators of the Scar had awakened, and they had one goal: destroy the last Nurek weapon, no matter what protects it now. The stars were quiet, but silence in space didn't mean safety. The enemy was coming, not just the Scar, but something worse, something behind them, The creators of the scar, the Zareth lords, had finally awakened from deep stasis. They had received the same signal Mark found. They knew the last Nurek guardian still lived, and they would not allow it. Aboard the human ship Celestial Ark, final preparations began. Captain James stood tall. Lieutenant Mark loaded weapons. Engineers reinforced shields. And in the heart of it all, the Predator, once locked in a cage, stood like a sentinel, watching every move. No one called it a monster anymore. Now they called it K-09, a name from its creators, a title with meaning, not a pet, not a prisoner, but a partner. Mark stepped into the armory and opened a special case. Inside was a suit, built from salvaged Nurek tech. Armor that glowed faint blue. Light, strong, fast, built to fight beside the Guardian. He slipped it on. When he walked out, the Predator looked at him and nodded. For the first time, man and beast would fight together, as equals. The warning came at dawn cycle. Zareth ships warped into orbit, black and gold, shaped like claws and skulls. Giant, silent, full of death. Mark stood on the command deck, eyes hard. They didn't come to talk, he said. They came to erase. Then the battle began. The sky lit up with fire. The Celestial Ark shook as missiles exploded nearby. Drones flew past the windows. Fighters launched into space. But it wasn't enough. Zareth forces sent down elite units, bioengineered assassins built to kill anything that wasn't scar-blooded. One unit cut through 2 decks like paper until it met the Predator. K-09 moved like wind through flame. Its claws glowed. Its strikes were clean, fast, final. It didn't fight with hate. It fought with purpose. Mark joined the fight with his new armor, watching the Guardian's movements. He copied, learned, flowed with it. Together, they covered each other's backs. Every move in sync. It wasn't training, it was trust. Hours passed, bodies lay across the halls. Smoke filled the air. The enemy reached the core reactor. One final strike and the entire ship would be lost. The Predator knew what it had to do. Without warning, it bolted ahead. "No," Mark shouted. He ran after it. "We stay together." But K-09 didn't slow down. It leapt into the flames, tore through the final Zareth brute, and ripped out the detonation core. The reactor shut down. The lights returned. The ship was saved. But K-09 fell to its knees, wounded. Mark reached it. Blood, thick and black, poured from its side. "No. No. Stay with me," he whispered, kneeling beside it. The Predator looked up, its breath slow, heavy. Then it growled something, low, soft, but clear. A word, not a sound. A word. Mark leaned in. "What did you say?" The Predator tried again. This time, the clearer. "Brother." Tears filled Mark's eyes. He nodded. "Yes, always." The crew arrived moments later, carrying medical kits, tools, plasma packs. Together, they worked to save K-09. They refused to let him die. Weeks later, K-09 stood again, taller than ever. Its armor was upgraded. Its body was healing. The scars would remain, but so would the loyalty. Mark now wore a new badge, Commander of Earth Nurek Alliance Unit 1. Their job? Protect life. Together. The Predator wasn't a pet, it wasn't a tool, it wasn't even just a guardian anymore, it was family. And across the stars, whispers began, of a man who stood beside a monster, of a beast that chose peace over blood, of 2 soldiers from different worlds who fought like one. They called it a myth, a tale, a story, but those who saw it, those who lived because of it, they knew the truth.